In 1920, the U.S. government passed a constitutional amendment banning the sale of alcoholic drinks nationwide. It was the start of Prohibition, a decade-long reign of terror that forced bars to close and made ordinary social activity a crime. Fast forward 100 years, and once again we're seeing bars shutting down and social gatherings criminalized. Only this time, the crackdown is being justified with safety concerns rather than Puritan moral precepts. But what a difference a century makes! Although the prohibition of alcohol is popular enough that 2/3 of state legislatures, as well as Congress and the president, were willing to vote for it, we the people weren't too happy about it. You can't just take people's beer, or at least you couldn't back then. The backlash against prohibition was huge. Illegal speakeasies sprang up all over the country where patrons could drink on the down low, keeping their voices down to avoid alerting law enforcement. Although as often as not, the local police were paid off to look the other way by enterprising bar owners. Some governors refused to enforce the law, giving residents more or less a free pass to ignore the alcohol ban. New York alone was home to a whopping 32,000 speakeasies, with many thousands more dotted around the country. In a display of typical American ingenuity, druggists continued to sell alcohol rebranded as medicine. In fact, the Walgreens pharmacy is probably only still around today because the money they made from medicinal spirits helped them expand rapidly in the 20s. Priests were also able to get alcohol by exploiting a legal loophole for wine during the Eucharist and other religious ceremonies. Even those not willing to break the law outright were good at finding ways of bending it. And while the safety of alcohol wasn't much of a concern before Prohibition, it certainly became one afterwards. Thousands of people died from drinking tainted hooch produced by distillers forced to operate underground without proper quality controls. Federal law enforcement even poisoned alcohol to keep people from drinking it, which led to thousands of deaths. But even still, people never stopped drinking. Contrast this with 2020 lockdowns. Instead of governors willing to defy federal law, we see them cracking down even harder, forbidding their citizens from gathering with their families, going to church, and of course from going to have drinks at a local watering hole. Instead of tens of thousands of illegal speakeasies, we see restaurants and bar owners dutifully closing their doors while they wonder if they will ever be able to open again. Instead of Americans uniting to find loopholes and workarounds against the tyranny that is depriving us of our livelihoods, our culture, and our mental health, we see neighbors ratting on each other for having too many people over for Thanksgiving. What happened to the independent spirit that made this country great? Whatever happened to the kinds of civil disobedience that not only undermined Prohibition, but which led to the Civil Rights Movement and indeed the American Revolution itself? I like to think that we as a nation haven't lost sight of those founding principles, that he who would trade freedom for security deserves neither. December 5th marks the anniversary of the end of Prohibition, an end that Americans helped bring about by fighting tooth and nail for the right to live as they chose, not as the government dictated. I don't know about you, but I'd like to see a bit more of that independent spirit today. Without it, we may never return to a world where we can hug our parents, shake hands with a friend, and share a beer together at a bar without fear.